Okay, hi, and welcome back to the Marketing Schematic. I'm your host, Ann Cotter, and today I am once again joined by Andrea Yank, and we are talking all about the burden of piecemealing marketing today. If you're not sure what that means, sometimes it's also called siloed marketing channels or fragmented marketing. We'll talk a little bit about definitions at the beginning of our conversation today. To kind of set the stage, as someone who is on our sales team, I can say from personal experience, and I'm sure Andrea has felt this as well. We hear a lot from prospects and even clients sometimes wanting to add one specific channel, or they'll come to us and say, we just really know that we should be doing SEO right now, or we want to run this specific paid campaign. And we often try to steer them more towards an integrated channel approach as we start to kind of uncover their goals. So today we're going to talk about how channels should be used as tools to reach those overarching goals versus operating in isolation. So welcome back, Andrea, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Of course, anytime. So I want to start by just doing definitions and explaining what we're talking about when we say piecemeal marketing or siloed marketing. So what does that mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so really it's just that single service, usually prompted by like, oh, we did this at my old company, or X competitor is doing it, or the VP came to us and said we should be doing this service. And then it gets kind of added in to somebody's responsibilities. But really nobody is looking at overarching strategy between all the channels that you're utilizing. It's looked at as its own thing, own KPIs, own messaging. That's what makes it siloed.
Yeah, I think you hit on a key thing for me there is that those metrics, you really just look at the channel metrics and then kind of lose the, okay, but how does that relate back to some sort of larger piece of marketing or business goals that you have in place?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a big one. Why do you think marketers end up, you kind of described one example of it, but why do you think they end up in this fragmented approach? I know one of them can just be like, this is the way we've always done it. Or like you said, my VP said we need to be doing this. So we're doing this. But any other pressures, internal or external, that you think can lead to this?
Yeah, so I think they just get some services, like I mentioned, just get added at different times for different reasons, but also just small teams. So you're having to do more with less, and nobody's there to give strategic oversight to everything. You also have limited budgets. Again, you're trying to do the most with what budget you do have. And you really don't have, a lot of these companies also don't have any kind of tool to analyze everything holistically or together. So,
yeah, I would also add to that too, kind of speaking to the smaller team part of that, what that you just mentioned. A lot of smaller teams, especially in marketing for manufacturers, might have a specific kind of like area of expertise. I mean, marketing is so broad. I think what we see a lot with the marketing teams that we work with when it's just one or two people is they're very events focused. So maybe it's trade shows or even branding that they're really, really good at, or building sales materials and things like that. But where they don't have strong capabilities is kind of connecting those dots back to digital or the website, or how are you then engaging with those people that you made contact with at these events through other channels. So I think that's also can be detrimental. It's just you just don't know everything, and you can't be a master of every area of marketing.
Right. Yeah, they don't know where to apply different things, different channels.
Exactly. Teams, I know this, we've experienced this, can often get kind of focused on very channel specific metrics. How does a siloed focus on channel metrics, for example, something like keyword rankings, contribute to the overall piecemeal problem?
I think it comes down to having the same goal across all your channels. So if I think that, and that happens a lot because again, like if you're not the expert in it and you have to outsource that type of marketing, you don't know what you should be measuring it against. But yeah, having the same goal, like, oh, website traffic and leads for every single channel, it doesn't do that channel justice.
Right.
Because you could be using that channel in many different pieces of the buying journey. And we all know that conversion is the last step in that buying journey. So,
yeah. Yeah, I think one of the cool things that we can do now with reporting, especially in Google Analytics, is being able to see the various stages that someone might go through before that final conversion. And I haven't gone in Google Analytics in a long time, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe you can even like weight channels by conversion. So even if the final conversion didn't come through a paid campaign that you're running, it might still have, it'll know if it was contributing to that final conversion, and maybe they came back directly to your website.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, if paid was one of the touch points within their journey at any point, it will give partial credit to that channel as well.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
I think that's one of the cool things about.
I think that was a long time coming, really. That should have been something.
Yes, that's awesome. As far as kind of like the cost of disconnection of your marketing strategies, or I should say channels, what are the most significant negative outcomes that you've observed from companies that operate with a piecemeal marketing strategy?
I think the thing that I come across most often is the narrative that, oh, we tried that and it didn't work, so they gave up on something. And it's like, but I have so many questions. Like, how did you use it? Who were you trying to target? What was the messaging? I think that if you're not utilizing it properly, or you're not connecting that channel to a piece of your buying journey, you're not doing it justice. You're expecting the same goals for every channel, and you're expecting the same results from every channel. And it's just not, it's not fair to that channel, and it's not fair to your budget, because you're missing out on that. I guess not everything is going to be funneled back to that final conversion. Like we mentioned, like it could be a part of their journey. So keeping that in mind. And measuring the right KPI for the right effort.
Right. Yeah. I think there's two important things, because I want to make to distinguish that we're not saying it's not important to just measure channel specific metrics. It is, because like you said, you want to give that channel credit for what it's going to be good at. So like LinkedIn, for example, it's a great awareness building channel. It's great for impressions, engagement. Not always the best at bringing in a like sales qualified lead right then and there. But you want to look at those metrics, but then also, okay, how are we going to continue to nurture them? So how can we, again, funnel them into some other campaign, or try to get an email or something like that, so we can continue to stay in front of them. And that's like that connecting the dot piece, I think, that you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
What about the customer experience? Do you feel like a disjointed marketing effort or a disjointed marketing strategy could negatively affect the customer experience as they're trying to make a buying decision?
I think it depends. Sometimes it's probably more noticeable than others. But really what you're risking is misaligned messaging. So whatever your messaging is for one particular channel, because that one person is working on it and they're not talking to another channel, it could be missing the mark on one of them, or just doesn't make sense as a multiple touch points coming from the same company. Because again, we have to have a unified voice, right?
Right.
The other thing is that you're missing out on sharing data across those channels. The other part is that you may not have any support at the top of the funnel. Because like I said, if you're looking at everything as the bottom of the funnel and that lead capture, as using everything for lead capturing, you're missing out on how you're going to get them into that funnel to begin with, because you have to create the demand, right? So again, to your point earlier, like LinkedIn ads isn't necessarily going to be the conversion point, but it's a really great way to get in front of exactly who you want to get in front of with exactly the right messaging.
Yeah. And I think it's important, just going back to having your overall strategy, or even looking at your company's messaging overall ahead of time, and just making sure that in everything you do in all of these different channels, you're being consistent with that. Even in some of the more traditional marketing channels, like I mentioned before, trade shows or events or sales materials, or even how your sales team is talking about you, making sure that's consistent with the campaigns that you're running, because someone might be experiencing, hopefully they're experiencing both. They're seeing your ads, but they're also maybe talking to a salesperson, just keeping that overall messaging super consistent. Another thing that we hear about, you kind of touched a little bit on, is, oh, that didn't work for us, or that was wasted marketing spend. How do you think a fragmented approach directly contributes to inefficiencies and budget waste?
So I think we touched on this a few times, but the evaluating every channel exactly the same way is going to lead to the narrative that you're wasting marketing spend, when really you're just not evaluating it correctly. But also, you're trying to create unique messages for each channel. And that's a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. And that you might not need that, right? If you're using a couple of channels across the same stage in the buying cycle or the buying journey, then that messaging should be cohesive across those channels. The other thing is that you are not, again, feeding data between channels. So where you can learn one thing in one channel, you're not applying that learning to another channel. So you're not getting better at the same time.
Yeah.
And you're having to do siloed efforts, essentially, to optimize both your channels.
That's a really, really great point, is what can you learn? How can you apply learnings from one channel into another? The content, for example, that might resonate through LinkedIn. What can you be doing maybe on the Google Ads side of things that could leverage those insights?
Yeah. And think about, like, if you use that content first in even your organic social media, like, that's a free way essentially to be seen what kind of content is engaging for your audience, and then putting some ad spend behind that, or putting it over to a different channel altogether.
Yeah, definitely. I think the other thing, kind of connecting to a point that you've made, is just that I see with wasted spend is just putting like all your eggs in one basket. So it's like a heavy reliance on, we're going to go all out on LinkedIn, or we're going to go all out on some new channel, or we're going to try TikTok, or whatever the case may be. And again, you don't look at that channel for what it's going to be best at. You're looking at it more for maybe bottom line metrics, when you should be looking more at middle funnel type of metrics. I think that's a big one that I see too, is like, then you just rule out the whole channel because it's not achieving the goal that you had in mind. I think that's a big contributor too.
Yep.
As far as building an integrated strategy, first question, what role does technology play in enabling an integrated marketing approach? And what are some key tools or platforms that can help bring together different marketing efforts?
Yeah, I think it's important, if you have especially more than like 2 or 3 channels that you're managing, that you do invest in some type of technology to basically centralize your data, your analytics. You can even invest in some automation tools to help with some workflows. It'll both give you visibility to that buying journey, but then also make sure that you are using all your channels in the right way at the right time. And then attributing those leads to the right channel. So like we talked about GA4 being able to attribute to multiple channels, even if the conversion came through on one specific one. So yeah, I mentioned GA4. Looker Studio is a good one to put or to bring in multiple data points for sure. Marketing automation tools, CRMs.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to mention CRM is a big one to continue to, nurture all of those leads that you're getting through your external or digital marketing efforts. Plays a big
You can
role.
get to a point with your CRM where you can actually see all those touch points and understand like what caused them to convert in the, at the end. That's invaluable.
Yeah.
Like you just,
Yeah. And so many CRMs, and we are not, we're agnostic when it comes to CRMs, but so many, I know, for example, like HubSpot can actually add some of that reporting, or you can run campaigns through HubSpot, and it'll be able to tell you, the different touch points that led to this lead that's now in your CRM coming through. And you can get really granular and have really solid insight into which channels are actually working the best. Even if that final conversion was just someone directly going to your website, that they have this whole history of interacting with you up until that point. What kinds of KPIs do you think a B2B or manufacturing company should be focused on to measure the success of an integrated strategy? Or like, what would be maybe some example goals that our clients have of like an integrated strategy that's not just like keyword rankings and things like that?
Yeah, I think you need to look. So that's a two-part. So I think the KPIs you need to take a step back and look at that by the buying stage, right? So I mentioned before, like you're not using every channel as that last consideration or decision stage. If you're using it in a different way, you should be measuring it in a different way. So again, if you're using it for awareness, you're looking at impressions, reach, meaning how many people that you're getting in front of. Consider in the consideration stage, that's where you're talking about more like clicks, content engagement, those types of measurements. And then in the decision phase, that's where you can look at your conversions. But again, you're not using every channel the same way, so make sure you're measuring it at the right stages. And then what was the other question? Goals. Back to goals.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we like to do is take a business goal essentially and reverse engineer that back into like, how can we contribute? All right. So if we know that you want to grow this type of business, I want to get in front of this many in this industry because that's going to directly affect that line of your business. So then I'm looking at basically, I want to grow awareness for those people. And then again, back to my KPIs, I'm looking at impressions and reach for that particular channel, whatever I'm using it for. It might be LinkedIn because that's who we can get in front of, exactly who we want to. But yeah, then taking that whole journey through each one of those phases and then applying the right KPI back to it. So it's almost like channel is last in my mind. It's really the touch point that gets us to the end goal that's important, most important.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to approach it, is the reverse engineer. And like you said, it could be maybe a specific product line that you're trying to grow visibility around. It could be geographic regions where you want to maybe increase the number of leads from a specific part of the country or the state you're in. We have that set as a goal for a lot of our clients too. And again, each channel you work within, you can have that goal in mind. So if it's a paid campaign, it might be awareness, but you can still filter down to that location. So they're all contributing to that final goal. So then when you're looking at leads, you can look at, did we reach this goal of, we want, 50% of business coming from this particular area, or we wanted to grow this amount. You can get specific with that too.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Last question for you. How do you get different marketing team members or specialists as a team lead here at Top Floor to break down some of those silos and really collaborate towards a shared goal?
So I think it is sharing those goals across the entire team for sure. So making sure that everybody knows their part in meeting those goals. Again, we're looking at starting with business goals, not individual KPIs like leads and traffic. That's not a goal, that's a KPI, right? Mm-hmm. So making sure that we're sharing those goals across all channels and sharing how they're contributing to that goal in what way. So again, maybe matching it up to those buying journey, whatever stage that is in. Definitely having someone be strategic oversight, especially for campaign planning. So getting the team together and being like, here's our strategy. We're going after this product line, or we're going after this market or this geographic area. And then you don't have to even be the one to lead, like, how are we doing that? If they're the experts, you ask them, like, how can you contribute? How does your channel contribute to that? Yeah. And then, of course, combined reporting. So if everyone is responsible for this goal, then that reporting should all be combined into, okay, what are the metrics that we're looking at per channel that are contributing to get to that business goal?
Yeah. I think to your point too, of just having that strategic oversight, as if you're coming in small marketing team and you're looking for a marketing partner or an agency, I think something to really consider is, do they have that strategic lead on an account who's helping to kind of translate and bridge the gaps? A lot of times we've seen clients come in where they've been burned or had bad experiences because they just didn't understand how is SEO or keyword rankings or organic traffic, how is that leading me to some of these bigger business goals that I have. So that's another thing too, as you're listening to this, that you can kind of quiz or vet any agencies or partners that you're planning on working with. I think that's a good sign if they have that person who's kind of leading the charge when it comes to overall strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think that's why we really introduced the concept of lead generation programs, so that we're not siloing our services, even when we're talking about like the reporting of them. You have a dedicated strategist, you have somebody leading the charge and steering the ship so that, you can help.
He just wants to be a part of the show.
Okay.
Since you brought up our lead generation program and that service, can you just kind of walk through the stages of that, especially kind of the beginning piece with the audit and how that really sets the stage for an integrated approach?
Yeah. So I think the audit is probably the most important piece, especially if you feel like you currently have channels that are segmented or siloed, because what we look at in our audit is we look at every channel that you're doing. And we tell you if we think that they are not being utilized in the proper way, and then we'll tell you how to use them in the proper way. So we even go as far as creating that roadmap at the end of the audit that says, here's the channels that you are doing, plus a couple more maybe that you are missing out on, that maybe your competitors are either weak on or you just need to be in, and like how to use that in that buying journey so that, you are hitting on each one of those touch points. Yeah. And then of course you can decide to take that in-house and do it on your own, or you can have us. And that's where we start. We literally look at that roadmap. That's not just like a vanity piece that we hand over, but we actually use that roadmap that we've created in that audit process and we execute against it. And we create goals, we create reporting. You have a dedicated strategist to make sure that everything that we're doing is panning out for those goals. And if not, like, we can pivot, we can adjust, we can also rinse and repeat with different industries or markets or whatever, however your goals change in the next 6 to 12 months. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the difference you'll see too with like going through an Upworks, or I think there's other ones like a Fiverr where,
Mm-hmm.
if you are of the mindset that, oh, I just need SEO, you're maybe going to go the cheap route and find a person who can do it really quickly and really effectively at a very nice cost for you. But you're missing that whole other piece of almost kind of like the why. Like, why are you
Yeah.
doing it?
And
Yeah,
think about the time cost, because you're going to have to give oversight to that
that's
person.
true. That's true.
So,
You are effectively their manager,
yep.
which adds another level of responsibility to your plate.
For
So
sure.
things to think about. Awesome. Well, I don't have any other questions for you, Andrea. This was a really good conversation. Yeah, I think hopefully our listeners will maybe rethink, or it prompts them to kind of consider ask yourself, why do you want to maybe endeavor in a specific channel, or what value do you think it will add? Definitely think about how that channel could connect to other things that you're already doing. Just, poke holes at it, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much, Andrea. And we will talk to you later.
Thanks.
Bye.